Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever been caught muttering to yourself while walking down the grocery store aisle, trying to remember if you needed milk? Or maybe, you've given yourself a full-blown, intense motivational speech in the car right before a big meeting. It usually feels incredibly embarrassing if someone catches you, right? You immediately pretend you were singing along to the radio or on a Bluetooth call. But the real question is talking to yourself actually normal? Today we're attempting something uniquely profound for this explainer. Usually we break down dense reports, massive data sets, or super lengthy articles. But our source material today is incredibly brief. In fact, it's literally just a handful of words. Yet within these few words lies a doorway to a massive, fascinating area of psychology and cognitive science. We're going to deconstruct a singular, isolated thought that was captured and preserved as a digital fragment, but one that points to one of the most universal behavioral quirks of our entire species. We're going to explore the deep science and introspective weight behind the phrase, "Why humans talk to themselves." The origin of our source today is wonderfully mysterious. The document we're pulling from is simply titled with the Hindi phrase, "Chipkaya Gaya text," which literally translates to pasted text. And that is exactly what we're looking at here, a digital fragment. It's a copied thought preserved entirely without its surrounding context. We don't know who typed it, what article it was meant for, or what conversation sparked it. But this isolated artifact of human curiosity serves as the absolute perfect jumping-off point for exploring the actual science behind inner conversations. Psychologists formally refer to this phenomenon as self-directed speech, or your inner monologue. For decades, researchers have been putting a microscope over this seemingly stray habit, and it turns out that constant chatter in your head, or the words you randomly mumble under your breath, isn't just random noise. No way. It's an active, highly functional neurological process. By preserving this copied thought, our anonymous author essentially gave us a magnifying glass to look at the brain's internal operating system. So rather than just looking at the formatting of this text, let's use it to unpack exactly what's happening in your brain when you become your own most frequent conversation partner.
So the absolutely crucial point is how this pasted text begins. Let's isolate the very first word of this fragment, why. It is perhaps the most powerful word in human language, prompting us to consider the deep human drive to question our own actions. But let's actually answer that why right now. Why do we do it? Well, from a cognitive standpoint, self-talk is an essential tool that helps the brain think and make decisions. When you're faced with a complex problem, your thoughts can easily become a chaotic web of overlapping ideas, memories, and anxieties. It's like a tangled ball of yarn. By verbalizing those thoughts, even just internally, you force your brain to slow down. You're essentially taking that tangled ball of abstract concepts and forcing them through the narrow, structured funnel of language. This requires linear processing. You literally have to put one word in front of the other, which naturally organizes your thoughts and significantly improves your focus and problem solving. This is exactly why when you're trying to assemble complicated furniture or debug a tricky line of code, you naturally start talking yourself through the steps. You aren't losing your mind. Your brain is literally deploying a sophisticated cognitive strategy to untangle a complex problem.
Moving to the next word, we see how this builds. Humans. By bringing this word into the fragment, the source frames this phenomenon not as some individual, quirky habit, but as a defining, shared characteristic of our entire species. It takes the behavior out of the realm of the personal and elevates it to the level of humanity itself. And psychologists entirely agree with this framing. Self-talk is practically universal among humans. It develops in early childhood as a way to guide our own physical behavior and to emotionally self-regulate. But what's really fascinating is how high performers utilize this innate human trait. Have you ever watched an Olympic athlete right before they step onto the track or the diving board? You'll almost always see their lips moving. Many highly successful people, from professional athletes to CEOs and elite performers, actively and deliberately talk to themselves. They use self-directed speech as a really powerful cognitive tool for emotional regulation and motivation. It helps them block out external distractions, manage severe performance anxiety, and essentially prime their neurological pathways for success. So when we see the word humans here, it begs the realization that this internal private act isn't a glitch in our programming. It's a high-level feature that binds us all together.
Now, the third piece of this puzzle is the word talk. Take a second to reflect on the actual physical act of vocalizing. Talking is fundamentally a tool for external communication, right? It's how we bridge the gap between our mind and someone else's mind. Yet, our pasted text focuses on the mechanical act of vocalizing when there is absolutely no external audience present. We're using the biological machinery of social connection in an entirely empty room. But get this, the surprising benefits of talking to yourself actually multiply when you do it out loud rather than just silently in your head. When you physically speak, you're engaging entirely different, multiple parts of the brain simultaneously. You're activating the language centers to form the words, the motor centers to move your mouth and vocal cords, and the auditory processing centers as you hear your own voice back. This multi-sensory engagement acts like a massive highlighter pen for your brain. It drastically aids in memory retention and task completion. If you need to remember where you put your keys or memorize a mental list of groceries, saying it out loud creates a significantly stronger, more robust neurological memory trace than simply thinking it.
And this brilliantly illustrates the full weight of our source material, why humans talk to themselves. Seeing the full pasted fragment in its entirety, like this, really emphasizes the visual weight and the psychological gravity of these 6 English words. It reveals a fascinating closed loop. The mind generating the thought is the exact same mind receiving the spoken word. We become both the speaker and the audience, splitting our consciousness into 2 distinct roles just to process our own internal reality. But because it's a closed loop, we really have to recognize when self-talk is helpful and when it can become incredibly harmful. The tone of this internal conversation matters immensely. Psychologists distinguish between positive, instructional self-talk, the kind that coaches us through challenges and cheers us on, and negative, ruminative self-talk. Actually, scratch that. It's more like an inner critic. When that inner voice becomes hypercritical, constantly repeating past mistakes or catastrophizing about the future, that closed loop becomes a dangerous trap. It can significantly harm our mental health, increasing our baseline stress and anxiety. So the phenomenon isn't inherently just good or bad. It's a powerful tool whose impact depends entirely on how we wield it within our own cognitive loop. Which brings us to the ultimate reflection of our explainer today. If this pasted text is a mirror held up to human nature, we have to turn that mirror towards ourselves. What does your inner voice reveal about your mind? The way you speak to yourself in an empty room is a direct reflection of your underlying cognitive habits and your emotional well-being. I want to encourage you to take a moment and actively audit your own internal monologue. Are you a supportive coach to yourself or a harsh critic? As you're listening to my voice and thinking about these cognitive concepts, what is that voice in your head doing right this very second? Are you silently repeating the words to improve your own focus? Are you debating the scientific premise in your head? Your self-talk is the most frequent conversation you will ever have in your entire life. I'll leave you with this final thought, to observe your own mind. Why are you talking to yourself right now?